Shio, we're going to go through the presentation about vocabulary for the different types of conflicts in literature for language arts. Now, start conflicts in literature, just the same as real life, simply means problems. What kind of problems you're going to face. So for your notes, let's go ahead and double tap that, and you're going to write problems. There you go. Just make it however looks best for you. So in the real world, we face a lot of problems, either with nature, with other people, with moral dilemmas, with addiction, with feelings, and so it's the same for our characters in our story. It adds a lot of stress and tension, but it also makes the story interesting, because they pretty much require conflicts. There are two different categories of conflicts that pretty much any problem you face can fall into, and that's in the real world or in stories. The first type of conflict or problem is an external conflict. So we're going to go ahead and put an EX for external conflict. Make sure that you're doing this in your notes, and this is a guide to an easy 100. So external conflicts are problems that are between the character and the outside world. So, as long as the problem is outside of the character's own mind, it is external. Plug in outside world and pause this if you ever need to. So, the prefix X, so prefix is that word part at the beginning of the word. The prefix X literally means outside. And so, for instance, the word exit, if you want to go outside of the school, you go through the exit. That's a good way to remember it. The other type of conflicts we all face are what is called internal conflicts. That one's a little bit easier to remember, because the prefix in literally means inside. So, internal conflicts means problems or struggles, let's type that in there, that are inside the character's own heart or mind. So any problems or struggles that take place inside your own heart, your own mind, other people can't see them. That is internal. Okay, plug that in. Great. So if you still need to fill out this page, just go ahead and hit pause. Otherwise, we are going to move on. So here are the different types of examples that fall into each category. And as you see up here, we again have the parentheses, and I do that to break down how to pronounce the syllables whenever we have a word that might be new to you, because I know sometimes if we see a big word that we've never seen before, it's easy to skip over, and so here's just how you pronounce it. So external, external, internal, internal. So external is outside, internal is inside. So the first column of external conflicts that might happen in a story is called character versus character. So, go ahead, I want to keep that highlighted. So anytime that you read a story or watch a movie where it's a hero versus a villain, or a good guy versus a bad guy, a law enforcement versus a criminal, that is going to be most likely character versus character. Multiple conflicts can happen at once, just like in real life. I can have the internal conflict of feeling anxiety and an external conflict of dealing with a bully. So this one is the easiest to find in stories. Character versus character. Back in the olden days, it used to be called man versus man. And that is because the root word man literally means human, so it's like saying person versus person. But we don't use it much anymore because now man versus man means more like gender. And there's not just one gender that experiences the conflicts. Underneath that is a picture from a pretty famous book and movie called The Hunger Games. And so the type of problem this represents is character versus society. So type in society to your notes. And another way of saying character versus society is also character versus government. So if you are ever at home and maybe grandpa and uncle are arguing, complaining about, the government, the president, certain laws that they don't like, they're having a conflict of character versus society or character versus government. They might not be acting on it, but they feel it. And a more external route of that is when you see different protests and things. So if a bunch of people are having the same conflict with the government and what the government's doing or what society is doing, you will see them all coming together to protest whatever that issue is to try to get their voices heard. So, the next column of external, outside conflicts, we got a man in a flood carrying a little girl. There's a life raft behind them. And this one is called character versus nature. So type in nature. And that can also deal with animals, bears, any kind of just nature that's not another person. The last one on this page, as an example, you see this guy and a ghost, is going to be character versus supernatural. So type that in. And supernatural basically means things that can't be explained by science. So, now maybe toward the end of the story or in the middle of the story or movie or whatever, they are able to explain it by science. Like maybe it was an elaborate trick by somebody or something, but if during the story it's not something explained by science, it's not nature, it's a ghost, it's werewolf, it's whatever, that would still be a supernatural conflict. Okay. Our last column is for the internal conflicts, and the only category of internal conflicts is simply character versus self. So I always love this picture with Kronk and his Devil Kronk and Angel Kronk, and they're both trying to help him make a difficult decision. Like, do you want to do the bad thing? Do you want to do the good thing? Underneath, you see a picture. Addiction is also an internal conflict. It's a battle that happens inside of yourself. So, making difficult decisions, dealing with addiction, mental health, all of those are internal conflicts because they happen inside the character's mind or inside our minds and other people don't see them. Next page. The first type of external conflict that we went through is character versus character. Type that in. Like I said, that one is most often the easiest to spot. So, how is this problem resolved or solved by the end of a story? The most common way that this problem is solved is that the protagonist wins. So remember, the protagonist is our main character, and it's usually, but not always, the good guy. 94% of the time, I would say, the protagonist is the good guy. So either the protagonist wins, go to the next line, the other option is the antagonist wins, which does not happen often because it's not a very fulfilling ending. And the third option is that, they both live to fight another day. And this usually happens if the author or screenwriter wants to give you sequels. So you want both characters to be able to come back. So maybe one just wasn't stronger than the other. Maybe it was a temporary fix, like, oh, they're temporarily now encased in this jail or in this magical spell, but one day they're going to be able to get out. Protagonist wins, antagonist wins, or both main characters, protagonist and antagonist, live to fight another day. The next external, outside conflict is character versus society, which means government. So, what are the common ways that this type of problem is solved in literature, in movies, and real life? So, the first most common way that this type of story ends is that the protagonist, the main character, changes the society. So they see what is wrong with the society, they do what it takes to kind of convince other people, and then eventually they're able to change this messed up society that they can't handle. And that's what protesters are hoping to do in real life. Regardless of like what side of the spectrum they fall on, if you are out there protesting, it means you are trying to change something about the society or government. The next option, more common option, is that the protagonist leaves the society. So they find out there's just nothing they can do about it, and, you know, they go off for greener pastures, or like a society that they like better. And this one, well, we at least see threatened in real life a lot, usually in the United States after each presidential election. You know, one of two political parties wins, and several members from the other political party might, you know, threaten that they're going to move to Canada. So that means they're either threatening or joking about leaving the society in order to fix the problem. And the last one is the least common, because again, it would be like the least fulfilling for a reader, but that is when the protagonist or hero just gives up and joins society. You will most likely, if you see this kind of option, see it in more of like horror stories, you know, like Invasion of the Body Snatchers, or things dealing with, you know, aliens, or maybe even zombies, you know, stuff like that. You know, where they're fighting the society of like alien pod people as they slowly take over everybody around them, and they take over the society, and you're left with just your main character, and so then finally they just can't win, so they become the pod person, or whatever it is, and they, you know, assimilate into the new society instead of, because they can't fight it anymore and they can't leave it. And so yeah, less fulfilling, but also creepy, which is why you would see it more in horror stories. So pause that if you need to keep going. External conflict number 3. Okay, I will save this one for the next set of notes, because I don't want it to be too much just stuffing your brain full of information. So we're going to continue this one with the next video. Thank you. I hope you got some useful information, and practice these terms because we are going to need them. Bye!